Two major players were not part of the talks between the United States and North Korea today. China will want to say in any nuke deal because, of course, North Korea has been dependent on Beijing for food, energy, and trade. And Russia fears the summit could impact its reputation as a major dealmaker in East Asia, according to an online piece by former Russian diplomat Vladimir Frolov. Let's ask experts how China and Russia may react to any deal and its impact. We welcome historian Victor Davis Hanson of Stanford's Hoover Institution, Michael Malice, biographer and author of the book Dear Reader, the unauthorized biography of Kim Jong-il, and rejoining us, Gordon Chang. Gentlemen, this is just, there's so much I want to unpack with you. Michael, I want to start with you because much has been made of Kim Jong-un's affection, historical affection, for his grandfather, yes, and where his grandfather was in conversations with, I think it was Jimmy Carter, right, back in, yes, was it 93, end of 93, and he died 3 weeks later. He even looks kind of heavy, looks a lot like his grandfather in many ways. How does that might play into this, and then your reaction on the Russia-China issue?
Well, a lot of people make fun of Kim Jong-un for his haircut, and that's actually very intentional. He's doing a throwback to his grandfather, the great leader Kim Il-sung, who was the founder of North Korea, who is very much revered to this day, even by refugees, as one of the greatest people who's ever lived. When Kim Jong-il took over in '94, that's when the famine started getting worse. He even launched a campaign called Let's Eat 2 meals a day instead of 3 to say that having less food is a good thing. So even his clothing is a throwback. I have the same exact suit Kim Jong-un's wearing. I got it in North Korea. I think it looks better on me. But the point is, very much optics are a function there of the regime, and anything that he can do to channel his grandfather's energy. And in fact, by law, only a descendant of the great leader Kim Il-sung can be the North Korean leader, which is one of the reasons why he had his elder brother assassinated, because if there is no Kim Jong-nam to take over, it's not like there's a Mike Pence. You have to stick with what you have. And
Victor Davis Hanson, when Madeleine Albright was there in 2000, she made a quick pilgrimage to the memorial for Kim Jong-un's grandfather, Kim Il-sung, and that's the great leader. That is how they refer to him there. But if you mind commenting on the China-Russia concern in this deal, any deal that might come out of this.
Well, Russia hasn't had any international clout since it squirmed into Syria when it was invited in by the Obama administration. Otherwise, it would have been out of the Middle East for almost 40 years. So it's going to try to repeat that, punch above its weight and wiggle in. It has a border with North Korea and offer us some type of triangulation, maybe help with Iran or something. China, North Korea wouldn't be nuclear if it wasn't for China. It wants a nuclear North Korea, but it doesn't want a nuclear war. It wants a sort of a pit bull on a Chinese leash that occasionally lets go and consumes American attention and resources. Then it feigns ignorance of what's happened. So it's perplexed right now. It's even scared, maybe. It seems impossible to imagine that maybe North Korea might gravitate away toward China, and that's something. As far as the Iranians, that's really interesting because this is their pipeline for nuclear technology, North Korea and China, and all the conventional wisdom said if you walk away from the Iran deal, you can't cut a deal with North Korea. In fact, the opposite is true.
Wait, Victor, are you saying the experts were wrong again? I mean, Trump was going to blow up the world 6 months ago. The economy was going to tank. We were going to go into global depression, and the Iran deal was going to screw up anything we tried to do in North Korea. All of that, just so everyone watching knows, the experts in this region, for the most part, the ones who are on all the other cables all night long, have been wrong about Asia for decades, much to the detriment of the United States of America.
I think Trump was sort of like that, the Apple commercial where the athlete ran in and threw the hammer into the screen and it just shattered everything because he wasn't beholden to these pieties and conventional false wisdoms. And one thing we have to do, though, Laura, we can't go back to the status quo. So the status quo was that and Trump inherited a terrible condition of missiles pointed at us that might have been nuclear tipped. Once they made that decision to point a missile at Portland, Trump is basically saying, you not only lost the missiles, you lost your entire nuclear program, and that's where we want to be. And I think he can do it. And the other thing is, we really got to, we're going to get medieval pretty soon because these sanctions are really biting. In the past, under the agreed framework and the six-party talks, strategic patience, we always let up. I don't think Trump will on the sanctions.
He's not going to. It's going to be maximum pressure. Yeah, I completely agree. Gordon, I want to play something for you. Jeremy Bash, former chief of staff of CIA and DOD under Obama. All this is unfolding tonight. History in the making. Again, we'll see what happens, but it's still historic. And this is his takeaway. Let's watch.
The spectacle of seeing the American flags along with the DPRK flags as the backdrop for that handshake is really jarring, actually, to see, to witness. In fact, I would say it's somewhat disgusting. It is actually a debasement of the American flag.
It's a debasement of the American flag because we've never had conversations, diplomatic or otherwise, Gordon, with regimes or countries who have had human rights violations and even threatened us. Never happened before. I cannot believe this man was a chief of staff for a major U.S. federal department. Stunning. Your reaction?
Yeah. Not only have we had conversations with countries like these, we've given state visits to their leaders. We've had Chinese state visits. And so, clearly we've got to talk to North Korea. It's much better than the alternative. President Trump's maximum pressure campaign is largely responsible for getting the North Koreans here. If we have to have our flag next to theirs as we talk to them, so be it. The important point here right now is that President Trump's talking about a relationship with the North Koreans. That is going to scare the Chinese and the Russians as well, because it means that we can then have one more friend in Asia, and China will have one less friend. And by the way, Laura, that one less friend, North Korea, is China's only formal ally. And so this undercuts this narrative of China being the global hegemon, the U.S. in terminal decline, that the Chinese will rule East Asia. All of that goes out the window in one summit. And, as I mentioned, if you have to have the American flag next to the North Korean one, that's a very small price to pay for a geopolitical advantage.
That's just a boneheaded comment. I'm sorry. We had to play that for you guys. Michael, when you go back, and we're talking about a lot of different aspects of this whole regime, relationship, part of the world is very complicated. But when Mao Zedong was looking at how North Korea and the North Koreans were developing, and Kim Il-sung, and they were going to the old Stalinist ways, they were abandoning Marxism and Leninism, but it was very much the cult of personality. I know Victor's written about this extensively, as has Gordon, as has you. The cult of personality with Mao in China, the Great Leap Forward, and also with Kim Il-sung, and to some extent, with this young man who's his grandson. We can't look away from that dynamic either.
And it's really funny, there's a gigantic statue in North Korea of Kim Il-sung, and everyone who visits has to bow down and put flowers before it. And when they put it up originally, it was plated in gold. And the Chinese government, this was in the 70s, said, we're communist regimes, we shouldn't be plating giant idols of our leaders in gold, so they changed it to bronze. But very much North Korea is a function of this personality cult. In their literature, they attack the idea that a personality cult's a bad idea, because from their perspective, it is only the leader who bestows political life onto the population. So you can't really separate the two. However, that does give Kim Jong-un some leeway in the fact that since the leader's will and ideas are law, he's free to do whatever he wants, including contradict himself, and everyone will stand and applaud him. And Laura, I'm going to make one more point. When you play that clip earlier of Ben Rhodes, if you can't pronounce Kim Jong-un's name correctly, maybe you shouldn't be flapping your gums on this issue, and people should stay in their lane,
Okay. Victor Davis Hanson, we got 15 seconds. Sum it up for us.
Well, Trump is playing the good cop now because he's got realists like Pompeo and Bolton, so he doesn't have to play the bad cop, and he's much better at that role. That's new. And then finally, as far as the Rhodes and the final administration, nobody in the Trump administration is doing what Obama did and trying to coerce U.S. banks to violate U.S. law to facilitate liquidity for the Iranians.
All right,
this is much more transparent. We're not
good cop, bad cop. We have a lot more coming up. Dennis Rodman crying tonight when we come.